Is that recording? So let's start doing our usual warm-up. Starting off with the neck, just looking over our shoulders. Getting that neck muscles a little bit loosened up. There you go. And look up and down. I want to roll our heads from shoulder to shoulder. Again, I like to usually sometimes pull my arms down behind me just to kind of make sure that I don't shrug by accident. It's completely optional. Good, now I'm going to do some big arm circles. Try to get those shoulders loosened up. Get those upper lats a little bit loosened up too. And reverse directions. Good, now we're going to do some arm crossovers. Some hugs from Monday evening. Keeping the arms high at chest and shoulder height. Think about feeling in those upper pecs and upper back muscles as you go back and forth. Awesome, now we're going to do our reach back. So make sure you have a nice stable base with your legs. I want to keep our hips and legs pointing forward, and we're just going to be twisting with our torso. Pretend like there's a glass of water or your beverage of choice behind you that you're trying to reach for. I can start off nice and easy, and I'll kind of go a little bit further or ease into it if I feel pretty good. Good, now I'm going to do our hula hoops. Just do the big old hip circles. Again, go whatever speed works for you. I like to go nice and slow. You can feel the tension go throughout. And reverse directions. Good, now we're going to do our ankle circles. So again, you can do it as always. You can have your foot on the ground, just like you're drawing circles in the dirt, or you have your ankle in the air. This kind of works a little bit extra balance. And reverse directions. And switch legs. And reverse. Good. Now do our wrist circles, kind of loosen up the hands, forearms. And reverse. Cool. Now take these last 30 seconds to warm up whatever the muscle group still needs a little bit extra work. Be doing my side lunges as always, nice and easy. A little tender after the squats today, so I'm not gonna push it on my stretches, just enough to keep me from hurting myself tonight. Awesome. Grab your sword or sword simulator and we'll jump into the sword portion of our warm-up. Right, so we're going to be doing our usual 40 seconds work, 10-second break in between. We're going to be starting off working on our X cross pattern. You can start at the shoulder, then move into the elbow, and then move into the wrist to kind of go, and then you go back and forth like up and down the ladder. That'll be the first exercise. So you got 10 seconds to get ready. Hopefully this will actually make noises. A few more seconds. Okay, so now we're just doing our X pattern, get the shoulder a little bit more worn up. Really think about the direction of the sword, so I want to make sure that my knuckles are leading. So I know that I'm leading with the true edge. Do the shoulders a few times. I can do that with my elbow. Again, making sure that my knuckles are always facing the direction that I want my cut to go. I can do some with my wrists. And once in a while, I like to pause just to make sure that my knuckles are facing in the right direction. Because otherwise, after a while, I can just get kind of lazy and I might backhand instead of actually keep the true edge. So stopping once in a while to kind of check yourself, pretty good. So next up is going to be an obliquo, so squalembrato into the tondo. That's going to be our diagonal cut into a horizontal cut to the head. So do that on both of the at the Menjudo and the Reverso. So this is my Menjudo. I can do my Reverso and Menjudo, and then the tanto. So we're just kind of getting used to sword paths and making sure we're not hitting ourselves with our weapon. Trying to keep it tight, but not so tight that we hit ourselves. Cool. Next up is going to be, we're going to do our two mandritos. So you can do this with footwork or you can do this without footwork. Basically, I'm going to do I'm doing my first mandrito with an advance, and then my second with a lunge. You can do it with passing steps. You can just do it stationary if you really just want to work on the cut. The idea is I'm doing two mandritos, and you can do them with whatever joint you want. So I could do a big shoulder one on my advance, and then maybe a wrist one on my second. So I'm doing a big mandrito to clear my opponent's sword, and then a smaller one with the wrist to attack the body now that I've knocked their blade away. So that's different ways you can do it. I can do two elbows. Can do with the pass too. Whatever kind of works. Next up is going to be the same idea, but two reversos. So other line, other direction. I did two passing steps, an advance and a passing step. Making sure my sword leads before the body. Next up is going to be just one mandrito into the lunge. So we're just going to, half mandrito. So I'm gonna do a half cut, so a half mandrito, and then lunge. Half cut, lunge. Again, I'm keeping my hilt a little bit lower on this lunge than I normally do, just in case my opponent's blade tries to come back from the floor, basically. They're gonna run into my hilt. My arm's up here, they can maybe sneak underneath still. So I want to keep my hilt a little bit lower in this case. Nope, did the wrong one, that one. Clears your sword, extend and lunge. All right, next idea is Reverso half cut into the lunge. The same idea, just the other side. So I'm doing my reverso, clear the blade, extend, and lunge. Yeah, I'm keeping my hand a little bit lower than I normally would, just to make sure that the blade comes back up. My hilt is there to protect me. And that is it. That is our 6 rounds for our warm-up. Grab a drink of water and we will jump into tonight's class.
Activity completed.
Yeah, so that's a good question on the horizontal cut. So if I'm doing that horizontal cut against my opponent, I'm really thinking about trying to hit them in the head and drag across. So I'm trying to cut through them. There's gonna be probably some weird deflection because you're running into somebody's skull, unless you're doing it across the face, and then you might be able to get a much cleaner, complete cut through. I think, but the idea with any of these full cuts is we're trying to cut through them. But we do know because it's a rapier, we're not going to be able to cleave through bone really. So it's going to be some kind of hit and then some kind of drag afterwards and stuff. And even probably more so in our sport because we're not even getting any kind of penetration, thankfully, on the cuts. So if I'm cutting someone's head in an SCA event, I'm probably hitting and then dragging. I'm not going to probably try smacking them across the head. Though if you're doing C&T, just tapping right there and stopping is going to be probably good enough. So the sport answer is slightly different than the martial arts answer and stuff. But no, it's a very good question though. Does that make sense? Is that good explanation?
Yeah. Cool. Make that. Thank you.
Awesome. Good question. Thank you. All right. So tonight we're going to look at actual specific plays in Italian Rapier manuals about how they use cuts in Rapier specifically. Let me just get my speaker view. There we go. So we're going to be mostly using, referring to Alfieri, because almost every single one of his plates, the last play in each chapter, he has a cut alternative. He's still very thrust oriented, and he's like, the thrust is faster, it's better than the cut. But he likes to present this nice, well-rounded system. He'd be like, you could do these cuts. It might not be your best or most efficient answer, but it is an option to you. So it's kind of good to have in the repertoire so we can kind of get a look at of how we can actually fit these in different plays and stuff. Because I think we've been doing is very like really working on specific mechanics or concepts. So now we're going to look at specific plays tonight. And we're going to be looking at cuts based off the feint. A lot of its cuts come after feinting and drawing that parry from our opponent. He's got a couple of cuts while doing voids. So that's extra sexy. That's fun. And then we'll do some yields and cuts when your opponent's attacking us. So we're basically using cuts to defend ourselves and then counter against them. So those are the 3 categories of cuts we're going to be looking at tonight. So we're going to start off very simple. So this first one's chapter 7 from Alfieri, in which we will go into feint high on the inside line and then do a reverso to our opponent's leg. So if I kind of just walk through this, so this, like everything else for the plays, takes a little bit of fight visualization. Do your best with it. You can at least work on the mechanics if nothing else. Actually, I'll do this one. See if I can do this one with the sword first, nice and slow. So I'm going to feint high at my opponent's head. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw their sword up to give me more access to their low line. If I just kind of feint at their like midsection, they can keep their hilt here. So if I cut down to their leg, it's going to be much easier. If they want to, they could drop their sword down here, which isn't the best defense for an attack at the leg. But if nothing else, it's just their sword is much closer to defend that and also be able to hit us in the face. However, if I feint high and I can get them to raise their sword up, now that point's going to be a lot higher, so they're going to have to drop their point back down to hit me in that tempo. And I just created a lot of low line that I can basically duck underneath their weapon, get the cut, and draw out. So like anything else, you need to do this in tempo and at good speed. So you basically need to feint and start throwing that cut as they're still trying to parry. Because once they've hit the end of their parry motion, if you haven't landed that cut or basically landed that cut, they're going to be able to come back. So this is the timing and tempo is very important in this one. So I'm going to feint high. My opponent takes the bait, and I'm just going to do a Strammazone. So Strammazone is just a circular cut with the wrist across my opponent's leg, and then I'm going to recover back, making sure that I'm covering this sword. Sorry, my radiator's kicking on. Making sure that I'm raising my sword to cover that line. So again, feint and high. I get them to try to parry that high shot, Strammazone, and then cut. And then I'm gonna recover. So I would probably do, like we talked about, 2 different ways of recovering off attacks. I would probably do more the Giganti recover on this one, which is head and then body. So I finished my cut. I'm gonna bring the head back because I'm really exposed here. The head back and then the body, and then the sword comes with, versus getting to here and then back, because I want to get my head far away out of danger on that one. Just do that a handful of times. Feint high to the head, judo cut, and then back. So work on it nice and slow. Make sure you get the mechanics down first, and then you can add in smoothness and speed, especially if you're working with a partner. Really make sure that you're getting all the mechanics down right first before you try to do it too fast. Feint, cut, back. So basically, if I'm throwing a cut at someone's leg, I'm probably aiming more for their upper leg, and because I'm throwing that that reverso, I'm probably hitting them on the outside of that quad, maybe the back of the hamstring, depending on our angles and stuff. So I could feint and do a sideward step while cutting at their leg, and that's going to take my body more out of presence. So if my opponent tries to come back, I'm stepping further away from their body. So play around with that one as well. Feint high, offline step while cutting at their leg. It's a little bit of a void. And then recover back in my on guard stance, covering their blade. Check to see how folks are doing. Yeah, so the Strammazone, so the circular cut is definitely like I'm actually drawing a circle. I'm not just hitting here and then kind of doing an arch, I'm drawing a circle over my head. So I gotta duck down here. So like the tip is going around my head, not necessarily my guard. I'm still keeping my guard out in front of me, but my tip is kind of drawing, do it on my knees here. And also, as I'm coming down from my cut, my point is going to be lower to cut my opponent's leg. I just don't want to hit my table. So it's looking good. So we now can do the same thing started on the opposite line. So what we just did was feint on the inside and then throw that reverso to our opponent's leg. Now we can feint to the outside and throw them in drito to their leg. So same idea. Again, I want to feint high. The height of this feint is very key. Anytime you want to access the low line, say feint it high to try to draw that high parry. Then from here, I'm going to do another Strammazone, drawing a circle over my head with the tip, keeping my hilt out in front of me, and then throw my cut on my lunge, and recovering back on guard, covering their sword in case they try to hit me with a double kill. I'll try to get that after blow. So again, feint high, cut, recover. are appreciating spoon versus saber. Any questions on either one of those two very simple feint and then light cuts? Cool. So the first one we looked at was chapter 7. The last one was chapter 9. Now we're sorry. Yeah, chapter 9. Now we're going to go to my favorite chapter, chapter 8. Just can never get away from chapter 8. That's my A&S project. So now we're going to look at that, which includes both a beat and then 2 different options for a cut. So we're going to quickly, we looked at this chapter during Interpreting the Masters month. So this will seem probably pretty familiar to everyone that went through that month. So we'll go through that one as well. So this starts off with us as the winner finding our opponent's blade on the inside line. So we have them found and we gain their sword. We can even pretend like we're feinting, but the idea is they feel threatened here. So now they perform a caviccione because they're going to try to strike us on the outside line. So I got them found, I gain, they perform the caviccione. I perform a beat. You can beat however you like. This is why I like my upward false edge beat because I'm on my outside line. So I knock this sword out of the way. And now I can do a reverso with a passing step. And I get my offhand out here to make sure if this sword comes back online, like it's going to run into my hand and not hit my body. So we'll just do that one with the reverso. Have them found, gain to perform that caviccione, beat their sword to the outside, cut to their head while doing the passing step and getting that offhand out there. You can think about it as it being almost like a closed guard, or you just getting your hand out there to catch this hilt of their sword. So do that one a handful of times. Nice and slow. Make sure you kind of get the mechanics down. This one could be a little bit tricky without, this one could be tricky even with the partner, but without a partner, you really need to be able to picture it all. So if you just think about, pretend like you just have your sword a little bit to the inside, beat your sword to the outside, and then do a reverso with a full pass. So if you're ready, now your left leg is leading, and get your hand out there. That's basically the mechanics with filtering out what the opponent would be doing. So I get found on the inside, beat with my false edge on the outside, Strammazone reverso, obliquo, get on my offhand there, cut through. So on this one, I'm probably, because I'm doing a full passing step, in the sport-wise, I'm probably laying that shot on there, like the side of the head, so I'm probably not gonna be able to really follow through. But in C&T, that's fine, because that's all I need to get that victory point anyways. So do 2 more, and then we'll look at the other version of this particular play. There. Cool, so we can also, instead of the reverso, we can do a mandrito there. I don't like the mandrito as much as the reverso. The reverso, I'm really getting a big enough cut to do some damage on my opponent. The mandrito version is almost like I'm being like, there, like a little love tap on their face, almost like a warning shot of like, do you want to keep this going kind of thing. So this is what that looks like. It's gonna be the same setup where I have my opponent found on the inside, they disengage to try to get me on the outside line. I do my offline beat, and then I can just basically lunge forward and mandrito across their face. So I'm really just getting a small little flick. It's basically a back and forth, back for the beat, forward when I lunge. So I'm not going to do much to my opponent other than give him maybe like a really nasty, badass cheek scar. Which if I'm fighting just for first blood, I don't really want to kill that guy. You know, I left my mark on him. Everyone's going to know that shot came from Remy. That's got to be pretty good for my my reputation on the streets of Paris, as it were. But if I really want to like do the guy some damage, I think that reverso is going to be the better shot and stuff. But even from like a little sport perspective of C&T, I parry, I hit that on that across the face. That's enough of a percussive shot. that should be fine. Yeah, okay, so Xavier asked if is the beat a distinct move from the windup of the cut? It's a good question. So I think the answer is it could be either or, depending on momentum and how like in control of the fight you are and stuff. So I could do that as basically just the 1-2 of the beat and then the reverso, but I could beat and just flow right into that and make that a nice fluid kind of thing. That's almost like a ribbon cut. So I think either or is fine, depending on how invested I am, how much I want to invest in that cut. With the beat and doing this, the Dewey type beat, then reverso, if the beat screws up or if I don't do it really well, I'm not fully invested into that cut. So I can kind of abort my mission, as it were. But if I do that as a fluid motion, if I screw this beat up, my body and sword are pretty invested in moving forward. So I need to make sure that I land that. It's a good question, though. And then, like, I think it's a 1-2 for the Mandrito, but with the reversal, I think you can kind of flow into it nicely. Any questions on those two? Cool. So this next one actually isn't from any chapters or any books that I've read. It wouldn't surprise me if it's something like this in any of the Bolognese side sword. But like I wanted to throw an undercut, like underhand cut into here, just to like get some practice into it. So this is a theoretical play, not one that I've actually practiced against anyone. But if you have a partner, you know, feel free to like walk through this and kind of see how it works and stuff. And then get back to me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm still going to feint high to try to draw my opponent to raise their sword, to try to parry that. And again, that's going to give me a lot of their low line, but it's also going to give me more of their forearm to hit, because the arm is the target in this particular play. So I'm going to feint high. They take the bait of the feint. I'm going to do a Strammazone montante. So that's going to cut on their arm. I'm doing a side step. I could do a complete side step right here and just hit the arm. I can go a little bit more forward with it, which now leaves me at kind of like prima. And then I can take a step forward and finish that lunge and hit them in prima. So I'm almost doing like a double tap, but cut on the arm. And I can just stop there and then get out if that's what I'm happy with. Or I can cut the arm and then let my body, because now I got a nice clear opening, that I can take that step forward and hit them in prima. So I do this from this 3/4 view. Feint high, cut the arm, step forward. I probably would do this as a close guard, just in case something kind of goes wonky. I really love close guards in general. So this is still Strammazone. I'm still doing a circular cut. It's a wrist cut, but instead of coming up, drawing a circle over my head, I'm still drawing it over my head, just sits at a weird angle. So I come up there. So I'm basically trying to hit my opponent on the underside of that forearm. And depending on what kind of sword they have, you might have to hit deeper on the forearm. You might be able to hit closer to the hand and wrist, depending on how big their hilt is, and stuff like that. So I'm taking this sideways step while I'm doing the cut for two reasons. One, it's going to take my body further away from where their sword is, because I'm feinted to the inside. So their swords bring further, because I'm feinted to the inside, it's bringing their sword further over that way. So I'm stepping to their outside line, so now it's got further to go even to reach me. So I'm buying myself some time. So even if all I do for the play is just that cut, perfect, I got a nice shot on him, and I kept myself pretty safe. Also, it lets me kind of cheat distance a little bit too, so I get closer to my opponent by taking that sideways step. So now if I cut them and they feel like, oh, I don't like that, I'm running away, I'm a little bit closer. I've basically stolen some measure from them. Then now I can follow up with a nice lunge or another passing step, depending on how you want to look at it. See how folks are doing. Nice, nice. Yeah, what I like about this one is that it's easy to remember the end position as prima. So you do that underhand cut, and when you're done, your hand should be basically in the prima position, and then you just do whatever footwork you need to thrust your opponent in the face or the chest. But yeah, those are y'all doing some pretty good underhand cuts. I'm surprised. I always thought that's the harder one. Some of you are just flowing that very nicely. Nice. Cool. Any questions on that one? That's my theoretical play that wouldn't surprise if we saw that in like some Balinese style of side sword. But I haven't read enough to know for sure. So if anyone actually tries that and it works, let me know, because I'll be very excited. If nothing else, that's just a fun way of practicing doing a cut with different footwork into a lunge. So really it's working a whole bunch of different stuff in fencing. So even if it's not maybe a realistic play in a fight, I think it's a good work multiple things at once type play. So now we're gonna go, we're gonna do cuts off voids, specifically the giratas. Doing cuts while doing a low line void, I mean, I guess you could do it, especially if you'd like any of those so pretty much, oops, sorry buddy. If I did any of these feints where I just did the cut, I could do it, I guess, as a super low line void and stuff, but they're never described that way. But when I'm talking voids, I'm talking specifically the two giratas. So when we kicking our legs out behind us and stuff. But first, I want to go over the mechanic of yielding. So we've gone over this previously in some other classes. But the idea is if my opponent is pressing on my sword on the outside line here, so they're over my sword trying to press my sword down and into my body. Instead of trying to push them back, I can yield, and now their blade is going to the outside of it. So I'm creating my little A-frame house or a tent. Their blade is over here. So my sword is now still between me and my opponent's, my sword is between my body and my opponent's sword. That's what it looks like from here. So that's my yield. I want to make sure that my hilt and forte are over my head. So if I do this with my actual rapier, so here's my yield. I want to make sure I want to make sure this is over my head. At my head level or below me, not doing me any good. I need to make sure that my head is underneath. So what I typically do is, one, I'm raising my sword up. Two, I'm lowering my body down by leaning forward. So from here, I might even squat down a little bit more, but that's going to come down to what your body will let you to do. But at most, I'm trying to raise my sword up, even if I can't get my body low. Hilt and forte over my head. If my arm is too far over here, they can easily disengage over and cut me on the arm, which isn't good. And if I'm way here, they can just press down to my déblayé and strike through me. So it's very important to make sure that I'm protecting my head with the strongest part of my weapon, which is the forte and the hilt. So that's my yield. Their blade's over here, up here somewhere my forte. And then I can just do my Strammazone again and cut my opponent or cut into their blade, depending on where the body and the blade is. So we're gonna do voids in a second, but just practice the yield and then do a Strammazone. So this is a yield into a mandrito. So we're doing a obliquo or squalembrato, but we're doing it with a wrist cut. So that's the Strammazone. Where basically opponent attacks on the outside, so we yield, and then we attack on the outside. So I just want people to practice at least the yield and then do that circular cut. You don't have to do it with a lunge or a passing step. If you just want to practice yield, and then the cut, that's fine for now. Just you got to get the mechanics down.
Are you going into your defensive posture when you're yielding?
I'm actually leaning forward a little bit. So,
Okay.
so I'm back here in defense. I'm coming forward. For a couple of reasons, if I'm way back here, maybe they'll try to shoot around. But also, this just gets me lower. And I might even, like I said, I might even squat down a little bit more to get myself extra low while raising my sword up. And again, like it doesn't have to be. I don't need to do a huge hip hinge because that's gonna be very awkward, especially if you have any kind of shoulder mobility issues. This can be maybe a little bit tricky. So you want to try to find what's gonna work for any kind of shoulder issues and stuff. But yeah, I do my moderate lean. You can do this also on the opposite line. So this is, we're basically gonna be doing like the He-Man, not the He-Man, the Conan. I guess He-Man might do this too. Like the Conan kind of pose. So now our opponent's pushing us on the inside line. So I'm going to yield, kind of looking, again, I got my A-frame, looking through the hole. I call it the Conan because you got like the little bicep going on here. So like, looks pretty cool. I wouldn't want to pose here in the middle of a fight. Maybe someone will get a cool picture though. And then I just do my circular cut, probably cutting down into their blade to clear it. But don't worry about that. Just worry about practicing the yield. Again, I want my hilt in forte over my head. And then just do my cut. This one can feel a little awkward, a little bit tricky. I find the inside yield to the mandrito much easier than this outside, even though I like throwing reversals more than mandritos. Yep. Very nice. And I think how much you square up is going to really depend on how comfortable you are staying profile doing this. I like to stay pretty profile when I do that versus square, because if I have to square up, I need to bring my arm across my body more than if I'm very profile. But that's going to vary depending on what your body will let you do and stuff, but just to kind of give yourself some ideas of what to look out for when you're trying to make this work. Yep, this is definitely a steeper angle to this one. And part of this is I don't actually have a sword to interact with to really kind of get the feel and stuff. But when I'm here, so like, I think also because I got the sticks, I can bend my wrist a little more. I got less of a steep one when I have my actual sword. The idea is the sword's out here, so I just want to make sure that my sword's between my head and body and their weapon that I can cut over. But yeah, I think the sword kind of changes it up compared to the stick. Something to kind of keep in mind. Thanks, David. That was a good observation. Cool. So now we're going to be doing a bunch of these. I just want to quickly go over those basics. And now we're going to throw these into voids. So this is the first one we are going to look at. Is going to be chapter 14, I think it is, in Alfieri. So our opponent's going to attack us on the outside line. We're going to yield and then do a Strammazone mandrito, either the obliquo cut, so that diagonal cut, or fendente. But we're going to do it with the void where we're just turning the front foot sideways to void the body. So quick crash course on the body void is the back shoulder always will go first. And then whatever footwork we do kind of follows, but this back offhand shoulder is basically doing all the work. That's creating my momentum. And then the rest of my body will just kind of follow. So this First one is girata stabile. So I'm just doing a stable turn of my front foot. But the idea is my opponent is attacking on the outside line. I do my yield, and then I'm going to do my volta stabile, sorry, my girata stabile with my mandrito. So I'm yielding with my still point kind of in my profile stance. I haven't done my void yet. I'm going to do the void as I'm throwing that cut. So I kind of do this from the opposite direction. So I just fix my camera on the recording. Here, yielding, cut. And I can throw my hand out behind me, chicken wing it, wherever I want to keep it. I just want to make sure that it's not in the path of what my opponent's sword might be. So I'm yielding, so the point is going to be crossing, it's going to be past my body probably at this point if they're really committed to that attack. And then I just do my void, striking them in the head. Again, I can do that as a fendente. So that is just a straight downward cut through their skull. Or I can do that sideways cut, the obliquo, or the obliquo, basically right into the neck, their clavicle. And again, I want to do this, I'm kind of doing this slow as like 1, 2, I'm doing my yield, then the cut and void as 1. So I'm doing this as 2 points, but as I get more comfortable with it, I will smooth it out and try to do it as one nice fluid motion. I want to make sure that I'm hitting my checkpoints first. So first checkpoint is the yield, second checkpoint is my cut. And we can even break that down even to smaller bits if you need. Because now that yield becomes the wind up for a cut. Check and see how folks are doing. Nice. Nice. Any questions on this one? Cool. So next one we're going to look at, we're gonna leave Alfieri for 1 second. We're going to go to Capoferro, who has, I think this might be the only cut in his entire book that's not like the circular parry cut, the transport basically. This one, again, our opponent's going to be gaining us on the outside line. We're going to do a caviccione into a half cut and then into a reverso. I think we could also do it into a mandrito as well, but it's written down as a reverso, so we'll look at that one first. So again, our opponent has us found on this outside line. I'm going to do my caviccione in a half cut, or you can just think about it being a very hard beat to knock their sword out of the way. And then I'm going to do my tuta girata with a reverso. So if you want to just forget about the first half, which is the caviccione into the beat, we can get rid of that if you really just want to concentrate on the second half, which is I'm doing my tuta girata, so my back shoulder is going to go first. And as that's going, I'm going to do my wind up and cut into their head or into the clavicle. So if I'm just breaking down that second half, okay, behind me, chicken wing, and then also I don't want to just hang out there. I want to like get back on guard, cover their sword and stuff. There's a slightly different angle. So if I kind of put in the beat part of it now, they have me found on the outside, cavicione, beat, or half cut, depending on how big of a motion I'm doing, if I'm moving or not. From there, now I'm going to do my tuta girata, dipping my point to my inside line, so it's going to draw a circle tight into my body and delivered while I do that void. And then I cover the line again. So I think we can also do this with the mandrito as well. So on this particular idea, same idea, I'm going to do my beat, I'm going to do my circular parry into the beat or the half cut, and then I can just, sorry, da-da, beat, and then circle over. So instead of doing the beat into that reverso, I'm kind of cutting down into the sword and following up. And what I like about this is that my hand at the end of the cut is already covering their sword, or it's close enough to where their line is, where the reverso takes my sword away. But the reverso, I think, is going to be faster to land the shot. So I think one faster offense, a little bit weaker defense at the end of it, and the other one with the mandrito, a little bit slower to land the shot, but you're safer at the end of it. So I think those are the main difference between those two. But everything else is more or less the same. How's this one working for people? It's a lot of moving gears. This one can be a little bit tricky. People got the idea of it? Any questions? Anything specific people kind of tripping up on? Okay. I said this is a super tricky one, but it's also a fun one to kind of practice. So like keep working on it, and I think that could be, again, if nothing else, these are just fun things to practice at home. That's going to really give you some command over your sword and your body and stuff, because it's just moving so many different pieces in different ways. Again, even if you're not going to use this in an actual fight, if you can do this nice and smoothly, it's going to look really pretty when you're warming up. Maybe you'll kind of scare some people in a good kind of way. We're going to do one more void. So we're going back to Alfieri for this last one. This one's also with a tuta girata. We're going to be yielding and then doing the mandrito. It's going to be very similar to the Capoferro one that we just did. But we're not doing any kind of beat first. The idea is our opponent has our sword found. We do a cavicione. They do a contra cavicione. So they're trying to, again, tack us on the outside line. I'm going to yield and then do my tuta girata with a mandrito and then cover. So you can just think about it just from them attacking you. So that's the whole play, but we can break it down and get rid of the two disengages to begin with, and then just attacking us on the outside line. So there's a little bit of a more stripped down version. The attack is on the outside line. I'm going to yield. Now I'm going to do my tuta girata with my mandrito. Kind of in the head or the clavicle. And again, this yield, I'm kind of doing it to practice. I'm doing it as a 1-2, very staccato-like. But this yield really does lend itself to a very nice wind up for that cut, for that mandrito. So if I do a little slower but smoothly, attack the outside, I yield, body turns, strikes. And then I make sure I cover, and then I can get the hell out of dodge. Do that from a slightly different angle. Nice. How's this one feeling? Cool. Yeah, so like this is weird because we don't do a lot of voids in the SCA. So for those of us who have been practicing one, this might be a little bit more comfortable. But then we're throwing in cuts, which we just don't do a lot of in the SCA unless you're doing C&T or longsword kind of stuff or Balinese and stuff. So these last few plays a little bit more foreign probably than what we're used to and stuff. So I think, so another good question from Xavier, is there no step or half step on the yield in the last one? You can definitely do it depending on how much space you need to kind of give between your opponent's attack and yourself. So if my opponent's really doing a big attack and I don't think I'm going to be able to yield and get my sword fast enough, I can do it with a retreating step, and then I can do my cut from there and stuff. It's going to come down to tactics and what the your opponent's doing, and can you get the yielder in time, or you need to give yourself some space. Yeah. So like I could do this yield. I could cut down even into their blade, or do a half cut with that tuta, and then kind of lunge. Because now I'm at a big angle that they're not going to be able to really penetrate and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can follow up from this kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm glad that you're thinking about those extra plays from there all on. It's really good. All right, now we're going to jump into defensive cuts. These voids kind of already like that. Voids have a very defensive element in terms of we're taking our body offline and we're doing yields. We're going to be doing more yields and cuts in these last ones, or at least in a couple of these. So this first one, this one isn't in any particular book, but it's something I learned through Academy Duello. It's basically, we do a lunge, our opponent parries our lunge, and instead of trying to parry as we recover, we're going to do a yield as we recover back, to basically just kind of mix it up, and then we're going to throw a cut from there into their sword. So how this will work, kind of do it at the side angle here. I'm going to throw a lunge. They've parried it. I'm going to, so I've tapped on the inside line, so I'm going to do my yield, my Conan yield, as I recover back. And I can cut into their sword, and I can lunge back. So I've lunged. They do their riposte. I parry basically with my yield. Now I can basically do my clear and cut while taking it off line side with my back foot. And I can now step forward. So there's a whole bunch of ways you can mix different kind of footwork and stuff in there, depending on where your body needs to be and where your sword needs to be. But the basic idea is we're going to protect ourselves with the yield instead of a big parry. Some kind of a cut, either a full cut, so then I can do another full cut, or a half cut into a lunge. I can yield half cut into a passing lunge. So like really there's a whole bunch of ways we can kind of customize this into some fun plays. Also works if I attacked on my opponent's outside line. They parried. I'm not going to try to parry back on my recover. I'm going to yield on my recover. And now I can hit their blade away. I can do that half cut and lunge. I can do my yield, full cut through their blade, and then maybe do a reverso while doing a passing step. That works. So that's a two cutter. I could lunge. So I lunge, recover with the yield, and now I can throw in my tutta like we just did. So that's another way we kind of add that in there. But the idea when I got it through is this yield can kind of help us when to basically parry our opponent's attack, especially if we're very close. So we're kind of like in strutta. If we like miss this shot in strutta, doing the yield at this close distance is going to be probably it's probably your best bet to save your butt, other than bring your offhand into it, because a regular parry they're going to probably be able to blow through it and stuff. How do you manage to free up your weight in your front leg to do a normal lunge again? Okay, sure. So I'll talk about my weight transfer throughout all this. That's a good question. So I got my lunge. So obviously at this point, my weight is on my front foot. As I recover back, I'm going to basically still do my regular weight shift recovery, almost like I was going into my offensive posture, but I'm doing the yield instead. So at this point, my weight is now back on my back leg again. And now I can do my cut, and I can lunge forward again. So if I do this perfectly from the side, my lunge, weight on the back leg, as I recover and yield, I'm going into, my body is in my offensive posture. My sword is just in the yield position. So all the weight, my 80% is back on that back leg, which means once I clear, I got a nice powerful lunge I can throw back in there. Good question. Nice. Some double cuts. Very nice. Like it, like it. Double cuts and you didn't hit the TV or anything. That's the impressive part.
The trick is to use a dagger.
Yeah, that is a trick, yeah. So the one thing on these cuts, I just want to mention is we're not really, when we're doing the yield in the cut, I'm not bringing my hand, I mean, you could bring your hand all the way over like that, but it's a very big cut. Doing it this way, it's very slow. When I'm yielding, I'm really just trying to draw a circle with the point of my hand. I'm trying to keep my hilt it's still as far forward in front of me as I can, so I have some cone of defense from the hilt. There's nothing wrong with doing this basically a Moulinet. It's just going to be slower. And you're more likely to hit yourself in the head with your key on. And you will do it at least once. All right. Next up, we're going back to Alfieri. So this is chapter 11, I believe. So our opponent's going to be attacking us in the leg. So when we talked about defensive fighting, I think it was, there's a couple of ways we can defend when someone attacks our leg. Often you'll just see the back leg being withdrawn. I just stab my opponent in the face. That works. Alfieri, instead of bringing the leg behind the body, he just brings it to the back foot, so he's a little bit more upright at that point. And same idea, but we can also do cuts while our opponent's attacking us in the leg. And we have two targets. We can do a mandrito to our opponent's head, or we can do a reverso to their sword arm. So if I do this with the mandrito first, so they're attacking my leg for some reason, I withdraw it, and I just do my Strammazone and cut them in the head. Because they're going to be so far forward trying to reach from my leg that's not there anymore, that the head's nice and open, and it's going to be a lot closer than if they did their regular lunge towards my body. So again, they attack my leg, withdraw that front foot, and then cut them in the head. Also, this depends on your reach and your opponent's reach. So the head might not be close enough for you to hit them. But if you were fighting yourself, the shadow version of you, you would be able to hit yourself in the head. And then I could, as they recover, lunge forward and stuff as they try to get away. So do that one a few times. Withdraw the leg back, cut. And if you want, you can throw in an extra lunge. Cut to their head, just to kind of, wake them up. Maybe they try to run away, and I can lunge forward and hit them. See how folks are doing with that one. The other target we can do is a reverso to their sword arm. Again, because they're doing this low lunge going for a leg and they're very extended. That offhand, that sword arm is going to be nice and exposed. If I grab my sword on this one, this is a very relative, this is not a ton of hand protection. It's not like a cup hilt. But you can see that wrist is nice and wide open, especially depending on how my sword, if I'm in secunda, forearm is nice and kind of open that you could hit it. So we're going to do the same idea. We're going to withdraw that front foot back to our back foot and just do a reverso Strammazone and just slice it across where your imaginary opponent's forearm is. And again, I could follow up with another lunge as he tries to run away after getting his tendon sliced open.
I got the light again.
Did you? Oh
Yeah.
no.
Sam won.
Oh no. Oh no.
Shelly is beside herself in laughter.
Was your calibration any better this time?
It seems to have broken better this time.
Did it hit you or are you good?
No, I'm fine. I mean, I need to put shoes on, but yeah. We'll need to sweep up, but yeah.
Nice. All right, we got one more play to go through.
All right.
I think Grim might just have to watch on this one unless he wants to dance on broken.
I'm good. I actually have another meeting I need to get to, so awesome. Thank you very much.
No problem. So this last one is going to
Hope
be
I gave you a laugh.
chapter 18 of Alfieri. This one we're going to be doing an offhand parry and then cutting with our sword. The idea is our opponent is basically attacking us with a passing step. So they're doing this very big, long tempo. And we're going to try to cut them while parrying at the same time. I haven't practiced this one with a partner yet, so I'm still trying to figure out how this should work. So this is very theoretical and experimental how I'm going to explain it, just as a bit of a heads up. But the idea, how I think this one works, is I'm creating an invitation on my outside line. I think I want to raise my sword up a little bit to really kind of invite them to throw an attack on my low line. So if I'm your opponent, what I'm thinking about is basically throwing a shot down with that passing step. So maybe I'm trying to get my hand up over here. So you're giving me this nice flank, and I'm basically just doing a passing step with a low attack towards that flank. That's basically what you're inviting your opponent to do, is how I think that setup is. So as the shot's coming in to my rib cage, I'm going to just bring my hand out. So I'm basically gonna bring my hand out to do that closed secunda or prima position. So my offhand is covering my sword side flank. And as that's happening, I'm gonna draw a cut with my sword. So that's a reverso tondo, the one I just did there. Again, shots coming down to my rib cage, that flank. Get my offhand to pick it up. As it's picking it up, I'm already in the middle of my cut and hit them in the head. Because they're doing this big passing step, they come very close to me, so I don't really need to move forward on my cut. I can just hold my ground, parry, and then whack them off the side of the head. Inviting that low line by raising my sword up. They do their passing lunge attack. I pick it up with my offhand and cut. So you might end up squaring your body a little bit to get your offhand really to push their sword up to the side. That's perfectly fine. Again, in those like closed guard positions to the outside line, squaring up a little bit is perfectly fine depending on how your body needs to move and stuff. Like I square up a lot more on my outside closed guards. So this one I'm just doing with my reverso tondo to their head. And the way is I'm trying to finish in my closed position here of secunda. So I might hit them in the head and then kind of drag it, or I might just kind of do like a tip cut across their face, depending on the measure. But from here, if they start to try to run away, now I can chase them in my closed secunda very easily, and I already have control over their sword. So try that one a few times. We're almost done, and we're running a little bit later today. You can also do this as a mandrito, which I don't like again. I like the reverso better because I finish my cut in that closed secunda position whenever I cover with, but I could technically do it as a mandrito. It's going to be the same idea in which I am inviting my opponent to hit me in my flank. So I'm inviting them on the outside line, maybe raise my sword up a little bit to really kind of make that rib cage nice and tasty to them. They throw their attack with the passing lunge. I gotta do my parry with my offhand, do a reverso, tondo, and cut. And you can see here, like if I finish my cut all the way through, I'm in this weird cross-arm position, which I don't like. So I would probably finish and end almost like quarter, like an outside line quarter, which I'm not a big fan of. But if it's going to end the fight, it might be worth it. But I really like the reverso better, just because my body's moving together in the same direction versus opposite directions, which can be a little bit weird.
Do you start it in quarter on this one?
On this one, I'm still inviting on the outside, so I'm in like terza quarta. So I'm just kind of inviting to the outside line, raising my sword up a little. So I might be in quarta to really kind of make them want to hit me there. So as the sword comes, pick it up. And that's the tondo, which I'm not a big fan of. I much prefer that reverso. But he says you can throw a mandrito as well. I'm just not a big fan of how that feels. Alrighty, any questions on that play or any of the other plays or any of the cuts we've done? Cool, awesome. As always, thanks for showing up. I will upload the video. I'll create another optional homework / quiz for y'all to kind of do in your copious free time stuck at home, probably still. Next week, we're going to talk about how to defeat cuts. We're going to kind of look at different measures, our different options, depending on what's happening with our sword as well. So we'll kind of look at different ways we can defeat that. For folks that come out to the Thursday back to basics class, we're going to have to start right at 7:30 because I need to be at court at 8:30. I'm going to already be showing up sweaty as hell, so I don't want to show up sweaty as hell and late. So we're going to be starting right on time and going to be ending right on time, if not just a few minutes early and stuff. That's just a heads up for the folks that are doing that one as well. Other than that, that is it for tonight's class. I'm going to end recording, but then we can hang out for a couple of minutes as always for folks that want to talk.